Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Rabi Mahmood and welcome back to lecture number 5. Today we are going to look at the families of languages. Before this we have looked at different origins of language and we have looked at what is the language basically, and today we are going to look at a new concept, that is families of languages. Perhaps you would be really amazed to see this. What is this families and families that of languages? It's really very interesting, and you'll be going through different interesting concepts and different interesting facts today during the lecture, while you'll be looking at different families of the languages. And one thing that let me tell you in the very beginning of the lecture, that you must be really amazed to know that all the languages of the world, they have originated from the same one source. So they are, when one language is when all the languages have been originated from one main source, it means that all the languages are interlinked with each other. Perhaps they are cousins of each other. They are like family members. They are like they have got somewhat or little relation to each other. Today we are going to explore this concept, that what is this families of languages, and then we are going to see that how these things are going to contribute towards the development and the growth of history of English language. Families of language. Let's see that what does this family mean. It is a group of languages that are related to one another in terms of genetic origin. The very first important point, that when we are talking about the families of the languages, we are saying that we are talking about a group. We are talking about a group of what? Group of languages that are related to one another in terms of genetic origin. The languages that are related to one another, that have got some connection. So the next important point is that are related to one another, that these things would be having some kind of relation with each other. How? In terms of which thing? In terms of their genetic origin, in terms of their source from where they are coming, in terms of their beginning. The languages are related to each other, and when we talk about these languages in the form of a group, we are saying that we are talking about families of languages. They share, now the next important feature of these families of languages is that they share a common ancestor. A common ancestor means a common background. They are going to look at the common background. A common context that they have. All the languages would be sharing the same context, the same background. So the languages of the world, all the languages that are spoken around the world, they have come from the same origin, they have come from the same source, and they share a common ancestor and the common background. Features such as lexicon, phonology, morphology, and syntax. They are sharing not only the same common ancestor, but also they have got almost the same features. They would be having, all the languages of the world would be having lexicons. Lexicons are what? Words, vocabulary items of a language. All of the languages of the world would be having phonology. Phonology is what? Phonology is the sound patterns of phonologies are the sound patterns, the sound patterning of one specific language. So what is it going on? Features such as lexicons and phonology, and then morphology and syntax. There are some other features like that of morphology. Morphology is what? Morphology is the word formation, where the words are formed, where one word would have its base and the other word would have some kind of suffixes and affixes and the things like that. Every language, we say, is a combination of lexicon, phonology, morphology, and as well as the next is syntax. grammar, some syntactical structure would be there, some grammatical structure would be there in all of the languages. Then the next feature of the families of languages is that it contains several subdivisions called branches. We don't say that, although we are saying on one hand that all these branches have come from the one main source. When all these branches have come from the one main source, what is happening next? The next that is happening is that one main branch is further subdivided into different sub-branches. So there are the generations and the generations of these families of languages. Look at the world language families in 2006. This is a global view of the world language families that is given. A few of, as you can see, the first one is here in these languages. If we say it's Germanic language, let's see where is this Germanic color found. This era, this thing, and this part of the land, this is the land where Germanic language is spoken, the way Germanic language is used. Don't you worry. Today in the next part of our lecture, we are going to look at that what this Germanic is, what different things are. The second part that comes here that is shown is that of Romance languages. I'll be telling you that what Germanic languages are, what Romance languages are, what were their sub-languages, what was the main what was the main language within these languages, and what were the further subdivisions, and why they were called these, why they were given some these specific names. Look at the Romance languages. They were spoken in this area of the land. Then comes Celtic. Celtic, that one that is shown in the black color, in the dark color, is this one. They are known as Celtic languages. All the greenish part of this thing, we can say they are Slavic and Baltic languages. Then comes green languages, Greek languages, the languages of the Greeks, of the old Greeks. You can see that they were spoken this way. These are the Greek languages. Then comes next, that is Albanian languages. Albanian was spoken in this part of the land. There comes Iranian and Armenian languages. Iranian and Armenian, you can see, are Iranian and Armenian. They are spoken around this part of the world. Then comes Indo-Aryan languages. Indo-Aryan, they are spoken this part of the world. So these are different languages, the main branches of the languages that are shown, and this was a representation of these languages on a map. Indo-European family. It refers to a family of languages. Firstly, let me tell you one thing, that out of all the families of languages, the most prominent one, the most popular one, the most accepted one was what? Was Proto Indoeuropean families. Proto Indoeuropean families. Let's see that what these families were of languages was. This is also sometimes written as in this way, that this is INE, Indo-European family. It refers to a family of languages which by about 1000 BCE were spoken over a large part of Europe and parts of southwestern and southern Asia. See where this is language is spoken. It refers to a family of languages which were about 1000 BCE. About 1000 BCE. It was that much days back, that much years back, centuries back, when this language was spoken. And see where this language was spoken. The main parts were Europe, and then a few parts of southwestern and southern Asia. As the very title or the name of the family of languages suggests, that it is Indo-European. Indo, some parts of this continent, of Indo-Pak continent, and some part European of this. It was spoken over some regions of Europe as well. So the major regions that you have noticed are those of Europe, southwestern and southern Asia. Then compared with the other 150 to 200 families of languages in the world, the Indo-European is the smaller one. See, we are saying that this is the most popular one, but we see that there are almost 150 to 200 families of the world that are present, families of the languages that are present in the world. There's such a great range of the families that are present in the world. If these are from 150 to 200 families, then what is happening out of these 150 to 200 families of languages, this Indo-European family is the smaller one. It contains about 140 sub-languages that are there in it. There are almost 140 languages. But as these were the very prominent languages, so I'm again and again saying that this Indo-European family languages of family of languages, it was really prominent, it was really popular those days, so it was accepted and acknowledged by the around the globe, around the world. Look, this is the general tree of Proto Indoeuropean families. I'll be elaborating all of these branches one by one, but before moving on to that aspect, just look at the overall tree. See what does it have to say. You can see in the picture that there is one thing that is written in the middle of the picture. It's Proto Indoeuropean. This is the main language family. Now Proto Indoeuropean, you would notice that there is many main branches, major branches that are going on. One is Slavic, Tocharian 2, Indo-Iranian 3, Anatolian 4, Hellenic 5, Italic 6, Celtic 7, Germanic 8, and Baltic 9. Some of the linguists, some of the people, they agree that these are, some say that these are 9 branches, some say that there are the 8 main branches. Rather, these are actually the subdivisions of that one main language tree, or that one main language family. Some are agreeing that there are total 8 further sub-branches, whereas the other people would say there are the 9 sub-branches. But within this picture, we have seen that there are the 9 main branches, and then these branches at least are further divided into so many things. As we have seen that there are total 140 languages that come under this Proto-Indo-European languages. Yes. Let's start discussing these branches one by one. The first branch is that of Anatolian branch. Where is this Anatolian? Just see, here it is. Here it is, Anatolian. And let's see that how this Anatolian branch of language is further subdivided into different languages. Anatolian is a branch of this Proto-Indo-European family tree that has completely extincted, that has already vanished away, that has gone, that is further no more existed there. Only archaeological discoveries in Turkey demonstrate its existence. There were some studies that were going on, and that have really that have talked about the existence of these things, these branches, sometimes that they existed in that specific area, but these days it has totally vanished. It is not there. Let's see that how it is divided. Proto Indoeuropean is the main branch. It is further divided into Anatolian language, and then it was known in excavation in Bozaki. It was really a very famous language while there was an excavation in Bozaki. After that, perhaps it started extincting after a little time. Anatolian is further subdivided into Hittite. It is a very important language, sub-branch of this Anatolian language, and it does not share a number of structural features with the classic Indo-European languages. Although we are looking that there is a subdivision of Anatolian language that is further divided into Hittite, and then we are saying, although it is, the main descendant of this Hittite branch is who? They are Proto Indoeuropean family tree, but it does not share most of its features with the main branch. Perhaps the things keep changing with the passage of time, so this was a totally different language that has existed later on. Then comes the second branch, that is Indo-Iranian. Indo-Iranian, it contains the two main subdivisions. The one is Indic and the second is Iranian. The two main subdivisions mean Indic is actually, on one hand we'll have Indic, on the other hand we'll have Iranian. Indic is actually also said that Indo-Aryan was a language that was also known as Indic at some time. Indo-Iranian, as you can look at the map that is given over here, and you can look at the divisions of Indo-Iranian language as well. You see that there are the two further. Firstly, Indo-Iranian is a descendant. It is coming from Proto Indoeuropean family tree, so it is true. So was the case with the Albanian. It was coming from there. So Indo-Iranian is, you can also see that it is further subdivided into the two main languages. One is Indo-Aryan and the second is Iranian. Indo-Aryan is collectively is also sometimes said to be Indic language, and there are the three historical periods that are really very, very famous in this thing. The three historical periods are divided into Old Indic, Middle Indic and the Modern Indic period. Old Indic, Middle Indic and Modern Indic period. Old Indic is what? It is actually a period that is ranged between 1500 to 1600 BCE. Then Middle Indic period, that was the Indo-Aryan period, we can also say. It is ranged between 1600 BCE to 1000 CE. This is known as the oldest Middle Indic in period. The oldest Middle Indic means the language of that period, the language that was the oldest one, that has perhaps, like, it's gone, it does not extinct, it does not survive anymore. Then the next is Modern Indic. Modern Indic, you can see, is started since 1000 CE, and one of the largest and the most heterogeneous of Indo-European subgroups. Yes, it is said that this language, this Modern Indic, that was the third branch of this Indic period. Since 1000 CE, it was regarded as one of the largest. Perhaps it was like too rich because of its richness of language. It was regarded as one of the largest and most heterogeneous, that has diversity, that has a variety. So it was regarded as the largest as well as the most heterogeneous of all the Indo-European subgroups. Of all the subgroups, it was regarded as that one. Now Iranian, language that is the second branch of Indo-Iranian family tree. It is further subdivided into two main branches. As you can very well see, the first branch is Old Avestan and the second is Old Persian. Old Avestan was also known as Ghatic Avestan. Sometimes at one part of the history it was also known as Ghatic Avestan, and it was known as Ghatic Avestan because it was spoken in the eastern region of Iran. It is East Iranian language. Fine. This East Iranian language is further subdivided into three main categories. One is Parthian, the second is Kurdish, the third is Farsi. Parthian, Kurdish and Farsi. Parthian, Kurdish and Farsi. You can see that there are the two very important languages that we have noticed in this sub-branch of Iranian family of Proto Indoeuropean. What we have seen, the two important languages are, the one is Kurdish and the other is Farsi. These are the two very famous, historically very famous languages of the world. That so we are really amazed to know that these two are coming from this thing, from Old Avestan, from Iranian, and Iranian was a sub-branch of Indo-Iranian, and Indo-Iranian was a sub-branch of Proto Indoeuropean family of languages. Then comes, on one hand we were saying there is Old Avestan, and on the other hand, on the right hand, there is Old Persian. Yeah, Persian, see, amazing that the Persian, that is a very famous language that we know even in our region as well. This Old Persian is coming from Iranian. This Old Persian is further subdivided into West Iranian firstly, because the second was the first language that we discussed earlier, that in the sub branch of Iranian language it was Old Avestan, and it was spoken in the East, it was in East Iranian language. East Iranian spoken in the eastern part. Now we are looking at the western part of the Iran, and the West Iranian is known as Old Persian language. Now in the same tradition, this West Iranian is further subdivided into three languages. One is Pashto, the second is Yaghnobi, and the third is Khotanese. Khotanese, Pashto, Yaghnobi and Khotanese. Yes, this is really very interesting that our own language, the Pashto language, that is a language of our own area, of our own region, it has been derived from the West Iranian and branch of tree, and this West Iranian, it was actually a descendant of Iranian family language, Iranian in Indo-Iranian family language. So very interesting facts that we are discovering today. Next we are coming to the third branch of languages, to the third family. This family is known as Hellenic. It contains the languages spoken in the Peloponnese Peninsula like Attic Ionic, Arcado-Cyprian and Doric. While we look at the description of Hellenic, we sometimes say, oh, these are the languages that we haven't perhaps ever heard of. These were the languages that have existed and that have actually come from the main branch, that was the Hellenic branch. And Hellenic itself is once again a descendant from what? From Proto Indoeuropean family tree. Let's see that how Hellenic is divided into different things. Proto Indoeuropean is further divided into Greeks, also known as Hellenic. So we now got to know that Hellenic is actually the language of the Greeks. It is the language of very old people, very primitive people, the Greeks, who had existed there like very centuries back. This Hellenic is further subdivided into three main things. The first main thing is that of Northwest Greek, and again the other is Southeast Greek. Perhaps you would be noticing that all these languages, they are divided according to the north, west, east and south, according to these directions of some specific regions. Okay, as you are saying that as you are looking that at the slides, that Greek is further subdivided into the two main branches, South and the East Greek, and North and the West Greek. North and the West Greek is further subdivided into Aeolic and Doric. Aeolic and Doric, these are the two languages that have perhaps ended, or perhaps they existed a long way back, and perhaps that's why we don't know about it. Southeast Greek. Southeast Greek is further subdivided into Attic Ionic, Arcado-Caprian and Mycenaean. These three sub-branches are further subdivided into this Attic Ionic, this one specific language, this Attic Ionic. This was a language that was a language of standard modern Greeks. Standard modern Greeks. Okay? The standard modern Greeks, whereas the rest of the languages, the Hellenic, you can see there was another subdivision, while we are calling it Hellenic instead of Greek. Why? The reason is that there was a very, very famous dialect of this Hellenic language that was present in the Indo-European, Proto Indoeuropean family tree. And what was that main dialect of the Greek? That was Attic. This was another specific dialect that was present. Dialect is a regional variety of a language. Within, for example, if we are talking about Greek is further subdivided into so many regions. So every region, apparently it is seemed that perhaps there is just one language or the two languages, but this is not the case. Apparently these are, let's say if there are 10 regions, but actually there can be thousands of regions and there can be thousands of languages that are spoken in these 10 regions. So if we are going to look at the variety of language from the perspective of the region, so we are saying that we are trying to study dialects. The main dialect of the Greek is Attic. This was the famous standardized dialect that was accepted and spoken all over. Then comes the next branch, that is Italic. Italic is what? Italic contains the Latin, the cradle of the Western civilization. It contains the Latin, it has the Latin language, the cradle of the Western civilization, and it was said that perhaps it was one of the very, very powerful, a very impact-making language of Western civilization at the time, this branch of Italic. The Romance languages like Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Catalan and Romanian, all these have emerged, or all these have stemmed from this Italic branch of the languages. The Romance, we are talking about Romance languages. Initially in the start of the lecture, when we said that there are Romance languages, so I said that I will be elaborating this concept. So let's move on to the map of Italic language and let's try to find out that what these Romance languages were and what were their impacts. Proto Indoeuropean family tree, this is further subdivided into Latin, Feliscan and Osco-Umbrian, the two languages. Italic is subdivided into Latin on one hand. On the other hand, it is Sibalic or Sibelian language as well. This is the other part. Now what is happening? Italic, that is further divided into Latin. Latin survives the modern Romance languages. This Latin Faliscan languages, this is further subdivided. This is said about the Latin Faliscan languages that it survives the modern Romance languages. It survives the modern Romance languages. The modern languages that were known as the Romance languages, they are a product of this Latin Faliscan branch of Italic languages. This Latin Faliscan branch, it is further subdivided into two main things. Now the division is not region wise, as we were saying that most of the branches, most of the languages, they have been turned into, like, they have been further divided according to their regions and their directions. If some region is in, let's say, in the north part, so there is north we will say that this is north part of Falan language, and in the same way east western part, and there are different parts that would be said according to their regions. But for this time, these Italic Romance languages, they were further subdivided into the two main categories. The first one category was best known language, and the second was less known language. Best known language is Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Catalan and Romanian. What are the best known languages? Italian. See how many important and very best known languages that are still existing. The first one is Italian. French, a very, very big language in the world. Spanish, another big one. Portuguese, Catalan and Romanian. Catalan and Romanian. Yes, see, these are the best known languages that are still present, and these are all these branches, all these things, they make up Romance languages. Now let's come towards the lesser known languages of the same branch. These are Dalmatian, Romanish, Ladino, Sicilian, Sardinian, Occitan. Yes, these are really very, very less known languages, because perhaps while we go through the names of the languages, we did not find any of the familiar names. We cannot see that, yes, these were the languages that we also know. But whereas on one side there is the group, there is the family of all those languages that are very, very best known all over the world. Now comes Germanic, the most important branch. Why? Because it carries one very interesting fact. What is the fact then? The fact is that English language, that is the biggest language of the world, that is the source of everything, not only nationally, rather internationally. The language, English language, has emerged, it has originated from this Germanic branch of Proto Indoeuropean family of languages. So how you are going to remember that which one is important? Germanic. Within, why? Because within Germanic there was English language that was there. It includes English and belongs to the northwestern part of the Europe. Yeah, it belongs to which part of the Europe? English was there, it belongs to the northwestern part of the Europe. Languages like German, Yiddish, Dutch, Flemish, Afrikaans and English were a part of this Germanic tree. If we are saying that there are the languages that are descending from the one same branch, what is your view? That would all those branches be, sub-branches be similar to the main branch, or would they be different one? Yes, what do you think? I think not. There is no actually as such strict rules and regulation. There is no such criteria that suggests that it is going to be the same or it is going to be the different. It most of the time would be different. It is not I think that they are going to be the same as their descendant language. Now let's look at the very widespread tree of Proto Indoeuropean families, Germanic tree. Germanic is divided into the three major categories according to the regions. The first one is East Germanic, the second is North Germanic, and the third is West Germanic. East Germanic is divided into one sub-branch, and this is Gothic. Gothic was what? Language with the oldest continuous documents in Germanic. Language with the oldest continuous documents. There is one negative thing about this language and one positive. One positive thing is that this is about perhaps some, it would carry some written, it has some written documents. Language with the oldest continuous documents in Germanic. Gothic was having the language scriptures of Germanic language, of the oldest one. But the thing is that the negative point is that it is with the oldest continuous documents, oldest. Perhaps they have become archaic then. Although they were present, so they are archaic. Now let's look at the second branch. Second is North Germanic. North Germanic is further divided into Old Icelandic. Old Icelandic is the Old Norse language. Old Icelandic is further subdivided into two main things. As you can see this is subdivided into these two main branch. One is West North Germanic and the other is East North Germanic. Although we are talking about North Germanic, then again there was one western part of that and there is one eastern part of that. Within West North Germanic we have Icelandic, we have Norwegian, we have Faroes. Whereas in East North Germanic we have Danish and Swedish. Yes, it means which languages are more important and which languages are more we can say are more popular. Out of these East North Germanic, there were Danish and Swedish. Danish and Swedish. Danish is very much famous language. It exists there even these days. Then comes Swedish language. Swedish language is again very it is existing these days even, and we are really glad to know that Danish and Swedish, they both have emerged from the same source. And what is the source? East North Germanic languages. Then West Germanic. There are different actually descendants in the West Germanic. Its descendants includes German, a very big language of the world that is present even these days. Then comes Yiddish. Yiddish is another important language. Then comes Dutch, Flemish, Afrikaans, and then English. Afrikaans and English. But I would ask you to notice one thing actually. I have written the names of all these languages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have written the names of all these 6 languages in different fonts. Look, the German is written in a little board. Yiddish is written in some other font, Yiddish and Dutch. Flemish is quite smaller. Afrikaans is a little larger. It's like that of German. And then English. English is written in the most bold font and perhaps a larger ones. It shows actually that different importance of these languages that are existing. English is the most important of these West Germanic languages. Then came Dutch, then came Yiddish, then came German, and then comes Afrikaans, and the least on the last scale of all comes Flemish language. So another thing to remember, the English is coming from where? From Germanic languages tree or family of languages, and within Germanic it is coming from West Germanic. Yes, why English is considered Germanic? The next question is, actually there was a question, as you know that English is a descendant, English is coming from that branch of tree, so there was a question that why is English considered as that? The history of English language really started with the arrival of the 3 Germanic tribes who invaded Britain during the 5th century. Their language was called English. See, this is the reason. This is the reason that English and Germanic, they are considered the same. They are, firstly, the first point is that they are from the same descendants. English is coming, English is arising, is being originated from that specific source. Romance versus Germanic. There is a, you can say there is a combination, there is a comparison between Romance languages and Germanic languages. A good surviving example of this process is the line in Western Europe dividing the Romance languages, those deriving from a Roman example, from the Germanic tongues. Let's see that what does the family, Romance family include, what does the Germanic include, and what does modern English include. Romance includes French, a very, very big language. After English, the most important and the most famous language is that of French. Romance includes Spanish. Romance includes Portuguese. It includes Romanian. It is the result of a successful Roman campaign in the 2nd century AD. That's why the Romance family of languages was created. Out of what? Out of successful Roman campaign in the 2nd century AD. Then comes Germanic. Germanic group is English, Dutch, Flemish, German, Danish, Norwegian, Swedish and Icelandic. A group of almost all the European languages that were there. Then comes modern English. It occupies a middle position within the Western European family of languages, and its vocabulary approximately half Germanic and half Romance in the origin. On one side there is Romance languages, on one hand there is the tree of, there are the branches of this thing, this European family languages that is known as Germanic. On one hand we have Romance, on one hand we have Germanic. This Romance and Germanic, they are what? They are actually the 2 main sub branches, and they are occupy, and the current English that occupies the middle position in, on one hand with the Western with the Germanic and the Romance. The middle English is a combination of everything. This is a very important point that you must know, that today's English is a combination of the 2 main things. On one hand we have Romance languages, within Romance we have French, we have Spanish, we have Portuguese. These are 2-3 famous languages that we have in Romance, whereas in Germanic we are having English itself, we are having Yiddish, we are having Dutch and German, a very important language. So all these things have contributed collectively towards the development of our present day modern English. Then comes another branch, that is a Celtic tree. It is divided into continental and insular. The 2 main branches is Celtiberian, Liponatic, Britannic, Welsh, Scots and Gaelic. It is divided into continental and insular. We were saying Celtic is divided into continental and insular. Let's see that how it is divided. Celtic is coming from Proto Indoeuropean family tree, and this Celtic is further divided into 2 things, insular and continental languages. Continental, on one hand we have within continental Celtiberian and Gaulish languages. Within insular we have Goidelic and Britannic languages. This continental and Gaulish, the 2 languages that are there on this left hand, they are the oldest material, and from the continent is from the 6th century BCE. They are the two languages, the Celtic language, although a very important branch of Proto Indoeuropean family tree. Still, this is one branch, that is Continental. It was very oldest material that was available in that language. So it comes from at least 6th century BCE. Now comes the second branch, that is insular. Insular is further subdivided into two main branches. It is further divided and subdivided into different branches. Insular here is it is divided into Goidalic, Britannic and Brythonic. Goidalic is divided into Irish and Scots Gaelic, Manx, and Britannic is further divided into Welsh. See, this is important. English is coming from some other source, and Welsh is coming from some other source, from Celtic. Yes, although Welsh is a kind of we can say it's a dialect, yet these two are coming from two different origins. Although the main origin is the same Proto Indoeuropean, yet it has got a different origin. Then Welsh is the most robust of the modern Celtic languages. This is within the modern Celtic languages, we say the Welsh is the most robust and the most remote language. The second branch is that of Cornish and the Breton. This Breton was spoken in Brittany in France. This is again, you are saying that although like within in our previous in Romance family languages, we have French as a separate language, whereas this Breton, that is again spoken in the France, it is coming, it is originating from some other source, from Celtic branch of the languages. Tocharian, another branch, it is found in archaeological excavation in Chinese Turkestan. It was found in there. Then this Tocharian, again, first of all, it is a descendant of the Proto Indoeuropean families, and it discovered in archaeological excavations. It was discovered. It was divided into the two main things. The things are quite different. This is not the same as we have been discussing earlier. We were saying that most of the languages and their sub branches are divided according to the regions. For example, East, West, North and South, whereas now the divisions of Tocharian language, it is done into Tocharian A and Tocharian B. And it was also discovered in the archaeological excavations. The documents of the language are religious and commercials are from the period about 500 to 700 CE. 500 to 700 CE. The documents of the language, they are saying that they are religious and commercial. So it means that we are finding some documentary evidence of this language. And what was the documentary evidence? The documentary evidence was found in the two main kind of scripts, in the two main kinds of writings. The one was religious scripts. We found its evidence of Tocharian in the religious scripts that were present, as well as commercially the language that was used was that of Tocharian in 500 to 700 CE. So we can found its documents in the two main domains of the life. One is a religion and the other is commercial. Then comes the next branch of language. This is Baltic. Baltic survives into two languages, Lithuanian and the second is Lithuanian. Yes, Baltic is divided into the two main things. On one hand, we can say we have Old Persian, and it was spoken only till the early 18th century, and after the early 18th century it started getting vanished, the Old Persian. And on the other hand, we have Baltic that is survived into the two languages. One is Lithuanian and the second is Lettish or the Latvian. Lithuanian from the early 16th century, it started Lithuanian, it started from the early 16th century, whereas Latvian or the Lettish language, it was probably datable to 1585. See, these languages are like, perhaps these are more older than this one, but still after 18th century it also started getting extinguished. Now comes the next branch of the family languages, that is Slavic. South Slavic, Bulgarian, Macedonian and Serbian, Croatian and Slovenian. West Slavic, which comprises Czech, Slovak, Polish, Hungarian and East Slavic, made up of the Russian, Ukrainian and Belarusian. These are different sub branches of the Slavic language. Let's see that where it was spoken and how it is divided. Again, with the tradition of with the rest of the languages, Proto Indoeuropean family tree, it is further subdivided into Slavic languages. Slavic is further subdivided into South Slavic, West Slavic and East Slavic. South, West and East, the three main dimensions of Slavic languages are present. In the South Slavic we have, you can see that we have Bulgarian, we have Macedonian, we have Serbian, Croatian, Slovenian, and all Czech Slavic is also present in the South Slavic variety of languages. Then we comes to the West Slavic. We have Czech, yes, we have Slovak, we have Polish, we have Kashubian. In East Slavic we have Russian, Ukrainian and Belarusian. Is there any language that you have heard about out of these Slavic languages? Within Slavic we have Czech, Slovak, Polish and Hungarian. Yes, Armenian languages. Armenian first attested in the religious documents influenced by the Greeks, Arabic, Syriac and Persian. It was first attested in the religious documents and it was influenced by the Greeks, Arabics, Syriac and Persian. Greeks, Arabic, Syriac and Persians. Armenian languages, again a very famous language. It is attested in the religious documents. Yes, you see that the moment we are moving ahead, we are trying to notice, we are trying to see that the languages that have been noticed, that have been evidenced in the history, we can see that they are actually a part of the documentation that we find. The first attestation or the first evidence of the language that we are finding, actually it is in the religious documents. Most of the languages would have their representation in the religious documents, because religion is, is the most important and the most integral part of one's society. If it is most integral part of one's society, so what is happening? It is actually it is actually made a part, and then it is first of all, while the linguists who were trying to search out the evidences of the old languages, they have looked at only those especially in the religious manuscripts, so that they could get some evidence that where the languages was existed and where were its speaker, who were its speaker, and what was the area of the land that was over which it was spoken. Armenian language. Armenian language is the first attested in religious documents. It was first attested. It shows a great influence from neighboring languages. Armenian shows a great influence from the neighboring languages. What were the neighboring languages of Armenian? The very famous languages of almost very grand stature. The first is Greek, the second is Arabic, and the third is Syriac, perhaps spoken around Syria, and the Persian of Iran. All these four languages were having a great impact on Armenian language. And then on one hand it is written it was first misclassified as a dialect of Iranian language. What was happened? Actually, perhaps because of the name, perhaps because of some misunderstandings, there was a misconception in the old era that Armenian language is a descendant of Iranian language. No, this was not the case. They are not the descendant of the Iranian language. Rather, they were misclassified. as if the Armenian language is a descendant of the Iranian language. No, it was not the same. The correct actually the distribution or the correct categorization of the languages was that in the Proto Indoeuropean, that Armenian was a separate branch of the family of languages, and there were certain other sub branches as well. Albanic. Next comes the next language that is Albanic. Albanic is Keg and Tosk. It was influenced by its neighbor Greek, Slavic and Turkish, and as well as Latin. Albanic, as you see that Albanic unknown until the 15th century CE. Yeah, it was very later when it was realized. Shows a great influence from neighbors languages, such as, again in the same case, it is showing a great influence of Greek, Slavic and Turkish and Latin. There were the two main dialects that were very dominant at that time. One was Tosk and one was Kag. The first documents in Albanian is baptismal formula. Again the same thing. This is a religious document. Baptismal formula is again a document of religion, something that is related to Christianity. So where we are noticing this language, we are noticing this language again in some specific thing. Now there comes another concept. The next concept, when we have looked at different branches of the languages, the next concept is that of fragmentary languages. In addition to the 11 major subgroups, there are also apparently unaffiliated languages which survives only in the fragments, such as glosses and sporadic inscriptions. We are saying that there is one main language, then this one main branch is further subdivided into different 8 or 9 branches. These 8 or 9 branches are further subdivided into different languages. Now what is happening, these 8 or 9 languages, there is a great division and then the subdivision. What was happening, there were some languages that were not perhaps coming from any of the branch. They were existing on their own, and they were surviving. They were existing in fragments, in some pieces. They were one part of the language was being spoken at one place and the other was at other place. So they were existing in some fragments. All those languages were known as fragmentary languages. You can see that included among fragmentary Indo-European languages there are some fragmentary languages that have been included in the Indo-European languages. These are Ligurian, Phrygian, Mesapic, Venetic, Thracian, Illyrian. Fine. See, this is Ligurian. It is spoken in the northern Italy, possibly related to the Celtic. It is related to Celtic. It is spoken because around the area where that was spoken. Phrygian, in the area of the modern central Turkey, it was being spoken and it was existing. It has survived to exist. Mesapic, southern Italy, possibly connected with the Illyrian. It was existing in southern Italy. Venetic language is northeastern Italy. It was existing there. And then Thracian in the area of the modern Bulgaria and the southern Romania. Illyrian from the Dalmatian coast area of the Adriatic. So these are some fragmentary languages that were existing on their own. Some aspects of the structure of the Proto Indoeuropean family of the languages. Those aspects are the ones that allow researchers to find out similarities in the family of languages. The aspects are phonology, morphology and syntax. Phonology, the sounds. Some linguists, some scholars, some researchers, what they can do, they can look at the sound patterns of different languages and they can say, okay, this language is a descendant of that, this language is a different part, this was existing as a fragmentary languages and different things like that. Then comes morphology. If there are some people who are carrying out research on language, if they are looking at the morphology, they would look at the word formation and they can say, okay, this word was also there in that language, so it was written in that way. So by looking at the morphology, they can study the origins of the language and they can see that from which source it has emerged. And syntax, the grammatical structure. By looking at the grammatical structure of the languages, the linguist and the people can see, the experts of languages, they can trace the origins of the languages. You can see that the aspects of Proto Indoeuropean languages are written over here. Phonology, the sound system. Morphology, word formation. Verbal morphology, of the verbal morphology, something that is related to spoken language. Syntax is the grammar. So towards the end, I have been talking, and I have been saying that this is a family tree. A family tree. See that how it is. There is one mother tongue. This mother tongue is known as Proto Indoeuropean. This Proto Indoeuropean is further subdivided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into main these branches. Then these sub branches are further divided and subdivided into this way. You can see that one branch makes up the Greek, the other makes up Indic, Iranian, it makes up Slavonic, it makes up Germanic, it makes up Romance, it makes up Celtic, and it makes up Anatolian. But where are all these coming from? All of them are coming from the same origin. A very interesting fact about the language, that all the languages of the world, they are emerging from the same mother tongue. Then they are further subdivided into different families. They are further subdivided into subdivisions. So with this we come towards the end of our today's lecture. Let me give you a quick recapitulation of what we have done today. Today we have looked at the family of the languages. Firstly, we have tried to explore that what is it a family of languages, what are the features of a family of languages. Then we have looked at although the smaller family of all the world family languages, yet the most popular, the most dominant one, that is the Indo-European family languages. We have looked at different branches. We have seen that how they have originated, how they are further divided and subdivided into further things. No, we have not only looked at the Indo-European family, but we have also looked some of the fragmentary Indo-European languages. Fragmentary Indo-European languages were those languages that were existing in the form of the fragments, in the form of the parts that were existing on their own. Then there were some language in the language tree that we have seen towards the end, and we have come to the conclusion that all the languages, they have come from the same mother tongue, from the same origin, from one main source, and from this main source they are further divided and subdivided, and they are making a complete tree. So with this, let's end that lecture over here. Till the next lecture, please take very good care of yourself. Start studying, keep reading the things, look at the books, try to search out the material and go through the material in detail. Take very good care of yourself, and I will end it over here. And okay, till the next lecture, take care and Allah Hafiz.